Today's gospel is about hypocrites, people like the scribes who want everyone to admire and respect them for their piety, which they have actually carefully manufactured for just that purpose. It's all a hoax. Or is it? Do these scribes actually see themselves as frauds? Does anyone ever actually choose to be a hypocrite? You know, I think some people do. I base that belief on a conversation I had many years ago with a man who was a true Washington insider. This was during the Carter administration, and the man was my dad's press secretary. His name was Bob, and he had spent his life as a spin doctor, one of those who worked to get the best media representation for men and women in power. At the time, my dad was the Secretary of Education, and Bob had been his press secretary for several months. He and I were having coffee. "I just can't believe your dad," Bob said at one point. "I've never met anyone quite like him." "Really?" I said. "Why?" "Because he's totally transparent," Bob answered. "He actually is exactly who he says he is. He truly is who he says he is, who he seems to be." "And that's so unusual?" I asked. Bob just laughed. "Oh boy," he said, "in this city it sure is." He leaned closer across the table. "Let me tell you," he continued, "in this city, nobody is who they say they are. Everyone is pretending to be someone they're not. That's why they hire people like me. They have no choice. They can't be themselves. This place is too cutthroat. The press would eat them up and spit them out. They can't go out as they truly are. It would hurt too much. So everyone creates a public persona. They wear a mask, a suit of armor. Then when the mudslinging starts, the rock throwing, it's not really they who gets hit. It's just their mask. That's what they tell themselves, at least. That way, when the day is done, they can go home, take off their mask, shake off the mud, and tell themselves that it wasn't really them that everyone was criticizing. It was their persona." "Well, that's not my dad," I said. "No, it's not," Bob said. "I'm finding that out. He really is who he says he is." Bob shook his head. "Oh, man," he said sadly. "They're going to kill him. I hope he's got the flesh of a rhino. He's going to need it." This conversation opened my eyes. I saw that some people do consciously choose to be hypocrites. But most people? I don't think so. I think most people genuinely want to be exactly who they say they are and truly believe that they are just that. The thing is, I talk to a lot of people who are either atheists or else have rejected the church, and many of them say that the reason that they have done so is because most of the religious people that they meet strike them as such hypocrites. Such people, they say, claim to be Christians and talk about love, but they don't act like Christians is supposed to act. Too many just come across as selfish, judgmental, or intolerant. They don't seem loving at all. Trouble is, I listen to this criticism of the religion I love, and I can't really disagree with it. I too see many, many Christians who don't seem to be acting like Christians at all. It makes me feel sick. They're giving Christianity such a bad name that sometimes I'm almost embarrassed to call myself a Christian. But then I think, is that really fair? Are they really hypocrites? Or are they just deceiving themselves? It's very likely they truly believe that they are living a genuinely Christian life and are simply blind to the ways that they are not. Human beings have an amazing capacity for self-deception, after all. and I'm no exception. Perhaps I'm not the Christian I think I am either. Perhaps I'm a hypocrite too. How would I know? That's the thing. How would I know? You know, the great psychologist Carl Jung calls this human tendency to self-deception our shadow. According to Jung, everyone has a shadow. Like a real shadow, this shadow represents our dark side. It's the part of us we don't want to see, the part of us we hide from ourselves, especially from ourselves. But it's there. It's always there. The shadow is the person we are, but cannot admit that we are. We may believe we are kind, even as we do things that are not so nice. We may think that we are generous, but give no more of our time, talent, or treasure than the little bit we can think we can spare. We may think we are loving, even though we judge people, or even shun or condemn whole groups. We may do these things and not admit it even to ourselves, especially not to ourselves. Or if we admit it at all, we may find excuses for it. Our shadow is very hard to see. The Sicilians have a saying, no one sees their own hunchback. This is what they're talking about. So how do I get to my shadow? How do I make sure that I really am who I believe I am? Well, first, I must be willing to hear criticism. That's because although no one can see their own hunchback, everyone else can. Most people have a pretty good sense of the true person behind the mask. Most of the time, they say nothing. They play along. They want to be kind, or they feel that it's just none of their business. But sometimes they let us know in little ways who we truly are. We need to listen for that and learn from it. Oh, is that how they see me? Can they be right? They clearly believe that that's how I act, so there must be something to it. I need to look into that. Beyond that, I need to notice the times when I don't live up to my own expectations. When that happens, rather than just letting it slide or making excuses, I need to ask myself, how often do I do that? Is that just a one-time lapse? Or do I do this a lot? I need to look closely and answer honestly. The thing is, it's the people who don't talk the talk, but also truly, who don't just talk the talk, but truly walk the walk, that we all most admire. The people who really are who they say they are. The fact is, every one of us here is probably present this morning because we had someone close to us who really lived the Christian life in a manner that we want to imitate. We admired them and learned from them. We wanted to be like them. So here we are. For me, that person was my dad. That's because Bob, his press secretary, was right. He was exactly who he said he was. He was a deeply spiritual person, kind, generous, loving, humble, and totally transparent. There was no hunchback at all. In many ways, I'm here because of him. Today is the day we remember those who have gone before us, who were true examples for us. Think for a moment of the person who most inspired you. Now it's up to you. Let yourself become the person you most want to be. After all, you may never know who you will inspire. Amen.